It's Friday, and the fantastic news is that Arsenal are currently joint top of the Premier League with a game in hand, and everything is absolutely fine. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name is Rory, just as my webcam collapses again, and I'm joined by my very good friend
Adam. Rory, it's been a very long day. I know we've been talking offline about this, but it feels like this episode might be one of those de-stress levers for both of us at the moment. It feels like it's going to be one of those episodes, but plus got some interesting news that have taken place, good few results. I'm trying to drag this as much as I can while you're
just Jesus Christ go on,
playing up. But I think it's clear to see that Spezia board as well as the Salernitana board listen to our podcast, because David Nicola is sacked for a second time this season, and unfortunately Luca Gotti is sacked at Spezia. What did you make of that news?
I thought, honestly, I was just waiting for the tweet of we'll take you back, Nicola, again for Salernitana. I was waiting to see if they could go longer than 48 hours this time. But I think Paulo Sousa isn't the worst appointment. I think it's an interesting one. I think obviously now, as a Poland fan, you might have some feelings towards him because he kind of arrived and then left quite quickly, right? That was him, no? Yeah.
It was. And to be fair, I thought I was behind him in terms of the style of football. It was really good, interesting. I think he came with a bit of reputation of promising to play really attractive football, and then it kind of doesn't materialize into results, essentially. We had warnings from the likes of Leicester City fans, Swansea City fans, as well as QPR fans, and then you kind of saw it transition into his spell at Poland, and then he, as you allude to, went off to go and try it with Fluminense in Brazil, and then lasted barely 6 months there. So it's an interesting appointment, but I suppose it's something different to what we spoke on Monday as well. I was more surprised personally, though, Rory, about Gotti being made sacked at Spezia.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting one. Now, we've been saying for a while that they are kind of getting dragged into it, but I feel like there would been enough in performances to be to have a bit of encouragement. Like we talked about against Napoli. Okay, they lost 3-0, 2-0 against Napoli in the end, right? 3-0 against Napoli. But that first half, they were fantastic. And I feel like in parts of games, maybe that's the issue. It's only in parts of games they do well. But I think it's a very, now, they've put themselves in a position where they have to get this decision right. Whereas I think they could have, with Gotti, they could have still had a chance. Everything was everything could have been stable. Everything was just we could just get there because the teams below us are worse. Whereas now this decision has a lot of pressure on it, because you could look back in 4 months' time, however long it is, and go, oh, damn, we shouldn't have sacked that guy. Now we're in Serie B and we've got a manager who's put us in a worse situation than the guy we had. I feel like it's a really ballsy move. What I would hope is that when a club does something like that, they've got somebody in mind and they've got someone almost lined up. You want someone to just sign the paper and it's done.
Exactly.
But you would hope that they've not done a Leeds United and kind of done this with no thinking about it whatsoever. And that because I don't feel like their hand was forced into sacking him. How did you feel?
No, I thought it was it felt like they dwelled on it. It sounds like they probably looked at a performance against Empoli and kind of thought, shit, we're losing results, we're losing games unnecessarily sometimes. And like you allude to, you kind of think if you're having those thoughts, you'd have someone, or you would have spoken to someone to kind of sound out if there's a possibility that someone might fancy the move. It doesn't feel like that's happened. And I don't know if they're trying to cheap out on the appointment as well. And we were talking offline, Rory, about who could potentially replace him now. There's only two men that I think could do a job right now that I know that are free agents, and that's
Davide Nicola, of course.
Well, there is that. I wasn't even considering him. But we talked about Walter Mazzari. He might come in and just do a job, right? And then the other one was Gennaro Gattuso.
Now,
he's got a reputation, but he could get them playing exciting football, right?
Well, I think definitely. I think he's a manager who, like, he's someone that it's kind of weird. I thought he's kind of the manager I expected Pirlo to be. I think like Pirlo as a player was this really like sophisticated, like, and give off this air of like a football intellectual. And I think as much as I think Pirlo has been misjudged because he still did very well with Juve, seeing what we're seeing now, I think Gattuso, he wasn't the most sophisticated footballer. He wasn't the most artistic. Maybe you'd expect his teams to just be like, fighting Joe Jordan on the sideline every time. But actually, his teams played really good football. When he was at Napoli, he did really well. He won the Coppa Italia with them, right?
Yeah.
He got them pushing back up where they should have been. I feel like his time was really good. And then at Valencia, now we've seen since and what's going on there, that club it makes Barcelona look like a well-run, smooth organization. Like, it is an absolute bin fire over there. And I think there's only so much he could do. And eventually, I think him and the club have just said, we can't work together anymore. And fair play to Gattuso, because I think, without getting into the Valencia situation, the sooner Peter Lim, Gary Neville's mate, gets out of that club, it's the better for Valencia, because he is absolutely ruining that club. But I think Gattuso did the best that he could with his best players being sold at every opportunity. And I think he's a manager that could offer so much to a team. And I think Spezia could do a lot worse than bringing him in.
Exactly.
Now, has he taken over at a team in a relegation battle? Off the top of my head, not really. Even when he was in Switzerland, I think he was in a kind of fairly decent side over there.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to see if he's able to deal with that. But that being said, the type of character he is, I think he's going to be able to gender an atmosphere of combat and fight and us against the world, etc. I think Spezia could do a lot worse. Like, how would you feel about it?
I think I'd be welcoming him with open arms, to be fair. I think he gives you fresh air. He gives you potentially the ability to sign players that maybe Spezia have struggled to sign in the past. And it's not like, to be fair, Spezia haven't got like a bad squad at the moment. They've got a few good individuals in that squad. Granted, they sold Kivor to Arsenal. But again, if you think about the money that's been reinvested, Shmorodov's been a smart signing, I think, personally. And as we say, they've got some solid players in that squad. So, granted, I think it would be good appointment if they could make that happen. But it does feel like at the moment they don't have a plan. And similar to Salernitana at the moment, they just don't seem to have a clue. So let's see what happens. But Rory, we've got to also talk about our stories of the weekend. So I'll let you introduce yours first.
Yeah, well, guys, I'm repping the shirt, right? I'm repping the mug. It's got a very hot drink, though, so I'm trying to hold it quite steadily. It is the return of the League of Ireland tonight, as you are listening. It is back. It's a summer league. It's always on Friday night, so there's no excuse not to watch it. And it is a great league to watch. Now, Dundalk aren't as successful as they used to be, which is a shame. They were cleaning up for a while when they had Stephen Kenny in charge. The current holders are Shamrock Rovers. They are very, very, very good. They've had a big summer. They've brought in quite a few players, brought in a centre-back from Estonia that people are quite excited about, Poom. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if he's Mart Poom's son. I think he is, but it's a centre-back they brought in from Florinatallin, I think they're called, that people are quite excited about. Now, I'm only bringing this up partly because I love Dundalk, want to see them do well. But for people who are looking at Friday night with no football, just watch the League of Ireland. There's loads of really good young players that come through this league. We're seeing a big generation, or a kind of exciting generation of Irish players at the moment. Evan Ferguson, Michael Obafemi, players like that, where it's kind of, there's a bit of promise. And I think what I like about League of Ireland is that the average age of the squads in general is quite low, because the teams don't have much money. They have to play their youth products. So I think just a very quick shout out to give the League of Ireland a watch. And for this weekend, the fixtures, Dundalk have a bit of a gentle start, I'm going to say, as they take on UCD, one of the teams expected to struggle this year. But we also have, so this is all 7:45 UK time on Friday night. We have Cork City, freshly promoted, taking on Bohemians, who I did want to talk about. They have just launched an incredible third kit, absolutely beautiful, and it is in partnership with a foundation based in Palestine, which is about giving the children the right to play football. Every shirt sold, money goes towards the foundation. Really good cause, really beautiful shirt. So if you're looking to treat yourself to a shirt, after you've bought a Dundalk one, get the Bohemians one. But Cork City, so they were kind of surprisingly relegated a few years ago, got themselves back up, and it could be interesting to see how they do against Bohemians. Then there's Shelburne taking on Drogheda United, and St. Patrick's Athletic against Derry City, which I'm going to say is the game of the night. Two very good teams, and that could be a bit of a feisty one. So yeah, check out the League of Ireland this weekend if you find yourself at a loss on a Friday night.
If not, it's just for the shirts, right? I think Bohemians seem to have a record for this, haven't they? They got the Bob Marley shirt, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that was Bohemians as well. Beautiful shirt, that. Yeah. So that's my tip, and of course, I'm on the town. Come on, Dundalk.
Good stuff. Well, Rory, on the theme of shirts, I had to bring this one up. So for my story of the week so far, when I looked at this, when it first came up on my Twitter feed, I had to double check what I was looking at, because if listeners don't know, then I implore you to double check on Bari's new edition shirt, which is to commemorate a special celebration. Now, at the time, though, in my head, I wasn't necessarily thinking about this celebration, because I was thinking about a certain film, and not to spoil it, but themes of human centipede started going through my head when I saw this. So just to put a bit of context for those that are listening, basically, it was basically blokes, or people, shall we say, crawling on hands and knees. Now, yes, when you look at that as a kit, you're kind of thinking, what head case has signed this off? But the problem is, Bari have a history of doing the human train, as they call it. They allude to it as the human train.
Yeah.
I forgot about the celebration. The last time I saw it must have been on Nick Hancock's Football Nightmares. I think that was the first time I remember watching it. And since then, obviously, it went to the back of my head, because I didn't remember it for such a long time, until this glorious shirt. Is it glorious? I don't know. I don't think it is. It's not something I would be buying. And if it came as a mystery shop kind of buy, I'd be disgusted. I'd probably put it on fire, basically. I probably wouldn't want to wear it. Let's put it that way, Rory. But what did you think of that pleasant addition from Bari?
Yeah, I think they've done some really cool limited edition shirts. They did one last year, which was, because octopus is like a big thing in Bari. Like, they all eat octopus, and it was the octopus kind of print on the shirt, looked really sick, and it had La Bari on the front rather than grammatically it should be Il Bari, but they say La Bari, so it had La Bari on the front. It was a really cool shirt. And then I saw the thing of like more Bari limited edition shirts. I was like, oh, can't wait to see this. And you're right. The first thing I was like, that does look like the human centipede. I was aware of the celebration. So it's called, Il Trenino, the little train. And it was from when they beat Inter. It was when Cassano scored that unbelievable goal, his first goal in Serie A. It was against Inter. Of course it was against Inter. Of course Inter lost to them. But they did that celebration in that game, and it's become a kind of club tradition. I think they did it when they got promoted from Serie C last year. I think it's become like a club thing. But without intimately knowing the history of Bari and the Bari like club, I think you would be going, what the frig is that? Talking like, are they getting sponsored to do this? Like, is there a fourth film coming out? What the hell is this about?
Exactly.
So yeah, maybe try again for next season, Barry. But if anybody has one of the octopus shirts, I'm definitely in the market for one because they were very hard to get hold of. They were beautiful. Nice, good, Adam. We've done a bit of a roundup, but we've not even talked about what we're going to talk about today. This show is kind of jam packed. We are of course going to talk about Arsenal, Manchester City. I'm going to try to be as objective / optimistic as possible. It's very, very difficult. We are, of course, going to talk about the Champions League. We're going to talk about Chelsea continuing not to score. We're going to talk about Bayern and Sergio Ramos pushing journalists and being a general bell end. Benfica stopping Scott Parker. I forgot Scott Parker was a Champions League manager.
Exactly.
I completely forgot that. And then we're going to do a little bit of Europa League and Conference League as well. Guys, we're going to take a very quick break and we will see you after this.
Hi, I'm Phil Brown and you're listening to the Anglo-Italian podcast.
And here we are. It's time for the Euro review and we are going to talk about, we have to start somewhere and we're going to start with Man City 3, Arsenal 1 or Arsenal 1, Man City 3 for you traditionalists. Oh God, it was horrible. I finished work at 8:30 in Italy, which is exactly when the game kicked off. So it was a lesson with it was an adult class, right? And a lot of them are Milan fans. And as the lesson was getting on, I think I was getting more visibly nervous and getting a bit more a bit quieter, a bit tenser. And one of my students was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I was like, while they were doing work, I was obviously just staring into space. And he was like, Arsenal are playing tonight. I was like, yeah. I'm starting to get a little bit nervous now. And then I ran home. I got home just in time for the end of the first half. So I saw Tomiyasu's mistake on the metro and tried not to scream out in anger. And then I got in the door as Bukayo Saka was taking the penalty. And then the second half was horrible. But I'm gonna look at it from an Arsenal point of view and then from a City point of view and kind of see where it went wrong. For Arsenal, people the whole season have said if they lose Gabriel Jesus and Partey, they're in trouble. Well, it turns out they manifested it into reality, and it turns out you were pretty right. I was glad to see us without Partey because I want to see us without Partey on a long-term basis. Jorginho was fantastic. I thought he had such a good game. I really was like, oh, this is exactly the player we need. This is because if you think about it, before we bought him, it would have been Sambi Lokonga in midfield. And while he's a young, promising player, that game is completely different with Sambi Lokonga in midfield. I think there's a few more goals stuck in. So I think Jorginho was fantastic. But it really was levels. It was just, damn, we are so close, but just not close enough. I think with Gabriel Jesus and with Partey, that game's completely different. And what we saw was a team who's been there 5-6 times before against a team who's there for the first time. And I know it's becoming a bit of a meme now for Arsenal fans to go on about the youth of the team and the inexperience of the team, but it is fact. That's what it is. And whereas when the moments that did drop to City, they were able to just take the chances. We didn't take those chances. I think overall it was a fairly even game. I don't think we were outplayed. I don't think City had their lowest possession stats, had their most missed passes, had their least chances created. I think our press was really good. We really restricted them from what they wanted to do, but we gifted them all 3 goals. All 3 goals were our fault. So Tomiyasu, he's been incredible every time he's played for us. The first mistake he's made for us, and it's against Man City. Fine. What I did like was how the Arsenal fans responded. Sang his name, Zinchenko going straight over to him, and then the second and third goal were just in quick succession. The second one really annoyed me because we just got dragged over to one side of the field, and when that knockback from Gundogan. I was you could see it from a mile off. And I was like, again, Tomiyasu tries to block it, but that deflection takes it past Ramsdale. I think without that, I think Ramsdale gets it. And then the third one was just a beautiful goal from City. I think defensively we could have been better, but their passing and the speed of it was just a very, very good goal. And you have to hold your hands up and go, damn it, they're just better than us. Like they're just better than us. What did you think of Arsenal before we go to City?
I think his problem is it's kind of built up over time, hasn't it? Last few results haven't necessarily gone your way. And it just felt like it was, as you allude to, just a series of mistakes that really was the difference on the day. I wonder if Arteta should have made changes sooner. That's the only criticism that maybe I would have had, because ultimately what Man City did was a professional job. They obviously had the least amount of possession. I think it alludes to your comments last week when we were talking about Brentford match. You know you're champions when you can grind out results and not necessarily play the best. And that's what Man City did. They didn't necessarily play at their best. I thought Jack Grealish had a very good game.
Yes.
He was in particular a real standout for City. But apart from that, I just think they were just more streetwise. Probably just they've been used to that kind of occasions a bit more regularly than, say, those Arsenal players. And I think it was really telling on the night. Odegaard seemed really quiet again.
He did not have a good game. No. He did not. I think the two captains, like between De Bruyne and Odegaard, was a really big... That was like a really good way to measure it. Of like De Bruyne took the chance when it came to him, was fundamental in that game, like instrumental in that game, and Odegaard just couldn't find his flow at all. And I think Xhaka also, there was a moment where he was through on goal, but pretty much, and he just didn't shoot. And every other game he shoots, he hits that. And I just feel like there was this mental block with some of our players. Like it really felt like
And I wonder as well, like, I think at the time I was still feeling that Arsenal needed to reinforce up top. Like, as much as Jorginho is a very good midfielder to have, I think you started to see the difference between Nketiah and someone that would have been like a Gabriel Jesus, for example, who would have just added that bit more quality. It's a struggle to kind of say who you could have brought in that window, to be honest, who could have given you that spark. But you don't get those kind of windows where you can go and get a Yari Litmanen who just sits on the bench and can be just class, right? They don't exist anymore, unfortunately. But I mean, if you could have gone out into the marketplace and got someone of that quality, then boy, could you have done something in this match. I think that was the real telltale sign.
Yeah, I think Nketiah, it's a difficult one because he's been so good for us. He's been so good for us, and he scored a lot of goals for people were chasing him out of the club in the summer, and he's been so good. But we do lack that. What we miss is the partnership between Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus is incredible, because since Nketiah has come in, Martinelli has been quieter. Yes. And I think, the off the ball stuff, the non-scoring things that Jesus does is what gets us more goals, weirdly, because he's able to build and drop deep and that relationship with everyone else. And Nketiah is still learning how to do that, because he is very much, or was very much, a 6-yard box striker. And now they're trying to and you can see he's bulking up and he's got better. He can do the play in and bring people into play, but he's still not as good at it as Gabriel Jesus. And that's not his fault. Gabriel Jesus is an incredible player, right? But I just think it was just that slight level off, because we had two chances where Nketiah could have / should have scored. I think the header in particular, I was like, that's got to be put away. But I'm not all doom and gloom like I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans. I'm really not. I know that I really want us to win the league, right? It's definitely not over. I really want us to win it. But I have to just keep reminding myself that before, if someone had said to me the day before the season kicked off, it will be February the 16th and you will be level with City on points with a game in hand top, would you take it? I would have bitten your hand off. So I think you have to just look back and go, this is still overachieving. This is still a very good season.
Of course it is, yeah.
And it's still not over. So I think it's the key thing is that we get a win on Saturday. The only issue is it's Unai Emery and it's the early kickoff, so we're definitely going to fucking lose it, right? I can see that already, but it's vital we get a win. But for City, I think just very impressive. I'm glad you shouted out Jack Grealish. I think Guardiola's starting to get a bit more end product out of him. His ability to keep hold of the ball and just buy that space, that press resistance, right? To get himself space, keep position, or keep possession, keep juggling the ball between his feet. He's just impossible to win the ball off. And when you do tackle him, he always gets a free kick, like every single time. I thought he was fantastic. A player that changed the game, Akanji. Like, he is a centre-back that nobody thought, like, Dortmund fans were confused as to why City had come in and bought him. He's arguably been one of the best signings in the Premier League this year for what he's done at City, for how steady he's been, right? And he's just no mistakes. He's just a steady, solid, ball-playing defender who can do a job. And in a game like that, where Guardiola knew that we were trying to get past the wing-backs, and he had that back three, and Bernardo Silva was very close to getting sent off, so he couldn't really rely on him that much. To just then drop to a back four and bring Akanji on, put Ake at left back, which is weirdly working really well. I didn't see Ake as a left back. And that, honestly, that substitution at the time, I was like, he's taking off Mahrez for a defender. Like, okay, he just wants to see this game out. And then that move basically opens up the attack and completely nullifies Arsenal. I think it's just, again, the youngest manager in the league, Arteta, I'm pretty sure, coming up against a manager who's been there a million times. And I think it's just, you can just see the differences in the journey and how far we've gone. But for Man City, absolutely ruthless. Haaland, great finish. I really, really hoped he wasn't going to score, but there's only some. We're the first top 16 that he scored against away, so of course we are. And City were just really, really impressive. What did you think of City?
I think it just alludes to the point that they were just more streetwise than Arsenal on this occasion. Unfortunately, it was just the fact that you had those experienced heads. And as you allude to, Haaland was kind of 50-50 for this match. So the fact that he turned out and did that performance as well, I think that was incredible. But yeah, just to your point, Akanji's been incredible. The fact that they got Diaz coming back as well. So obviously he had a very good game on Sunday's match against Villa. It just goes to show you the depth that they've got. I mean, it's incredible when you think about it. But the one crumb of comfort that I would say to Arsenal fans right now is Man City are still chasing a Champions League. They're still in the FA Cup as well. So this is Guardiola's obsession. He wants to be in these cup competitions. And at some point, there's going to be a point where they will go through a tough run as well themselves, where they'll be back-to-back. So I think the fact that Arsenal are level pegging, and I know there's kind of shouts from their rivals, Manchester United at the moment, who are kind of on their back saying, you know, we're going to get second place now. Well, it only takes one more injury for Man United, and then we'll see them potentially suffering as well. So I think it's going to be a lot more twist and turn, shall we say, in this kind of title race. And I don't think it's concluded by this kind of weekend. But yes, it was probably not a welcome defeat for Arsenal fans, right?
It was so horrible. It was so horrible. Just afterwards, I just felt so deflated. I was like, oh, God. But I do have to say, no United fan can ever come to me saying the Manchester Derby is the best one in the country. I have seen so many United fans delighted that City won because Arsenal lost. I know, so we can really see who United care more about, right? I think it's blatantly clear for everybody to see. There is under no circumstance would I be celebrating Tottenham going top of the Premier League. There is no circumstance where that would happen. I find it really, really bizarre. Like it, and it's been everywhere. I just find it really odd because no way am I going to be celebrating any success for that lot over the other side. So I think really weird flex. Maybe it's just they just know they're not going to catch Man City. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but there's been a few weird takes from United fans at the moment. Honestly, I'm kind of worried they could finish second above us, but if you finish second or third, it doesn't really make much difference. I would like to finish second if, we can't finish first, but our focus was Champions League, and at the moment we're still able to get it, so let's just do that. And then wherever we end up, I don't know. Oh, God, the hope kills. It's the hope that kills you, Adam. It's the hope that kills you. God, I hate football. But we need to move on from the Premier League, and we need to go over to the Champions League. And we're going to start with Tottenham as they go to the San Siro and Milan return to winning ways. Well, continue winning ways.
Yes.
The first UCL knockout goal for 7 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In the San Siro for Brahim Diaz. And now I have to say, I felt very sorry for Forster. He made 2 incredible saves, but none of his defenders fancied giving him a hand. No. What did you make of that?
Like you say, Tottenham were really poor in this particular match. I thought, even though they kind of had the better of the chances in the second half, they still didn't look like they were going to score. And it's weird because even Kane hit the crossbar, if you remember, in this match. So it's just a weird performance. You've got 2 sides, as we alluded to on Monday, where you just didn't know which way it was going to go because both sides haven't been in the best of form. But, AC Milan with that particular goal just seemed to be growing in confidence. And they knew they were going to shut up shop. It just felt like they just knew as soon as they got the goal, that was it. And it's not necessarily a good lead to take to Spurs, you would say, on the hindsight of it. But it does give Milan a bit more confidence because I think they'll use this to kind of build the momentum going forward. I think you'll have some players returning into the squad as well. It's not like they didn't have a very good squad anyway against Spurs, but Spurs looked poor. I don't know if you felt the same way, but I didn't feel like they were particularly that amazing. What was your initial thoughts anyway?
I feel like they didn't really offer that much. I think Bentancur is going to be a huge miss for them. I think he's going to be he's a player that's not obviously I don't watch a lot of Tottenham, right? I try when possible, I try not to watch them. But I think from Tottenham friends of mine, they've talked about how big a difference he's made in the midfield, how good he's been for them. Him being out for the season is a huge thing. This player Saar that I've seen, I've not really been massively impressed by him, and I don't know if he's going to be able to fill that kind of creative, dynamic hole that kind of Bentancur is going to leave. What I felt was, ultimately Spurs didn't really create a lot. I think Tatarasanu made some great saves. It was. I felt both the goalkeepers in this game, it wasn't much technique, but they managed to keep it out of the net.
Very true.
It was just a bit like jazz goalkeeping, like free-form goalkeeping. It was a bit weird, but Tatarasanu made some good saves. I think, Spurs didn't create much. It's kind of weird what's going on there because I think Conte, he's going through all sorts of problems. He's had a very rough year in terms of personal relationships and health, and I feel like there's a lot of things going on in the background there that are not helping, and we all hope that Antonio gets through all of those things, right? But I feel like it just doesn't feel quite right at Tottenham at the minute. There's something just not there. I think for Milan, they're going to regret missing those chances at the end. There were so many chances where I think De Ketelaere, at this point, I just feel a little bit sorry for him because I think he's a player who's got so much promise and he's really technically fantastic. But you can just see the weight of the world is on his shoulders. And we've talked about it a little bit. He needs a loan somewhere. He needs a change of scenery. Let him develop somewhere where there isn't this huge media telescope on him. And when you are the attacking outlet for a team, you're the creative outlet, I feel like he doesn't need that pressure. When he missed that header, I was like, God, that's the last thing you need. And then even, I don't know how to say his name,
Malik Thiaw,
been unbelievable since he's come into Milan. Been incredible, but he also had a header that he should have scored. And I think Olivier Giroud could have believed that it went wide. So I think, and then the Leao chance at the end with a horrible first touch where it just kind of goes straight to Forster, and you think, come on, you're better than that. And I think Milan could regret not scoring more than one goal because I feel like going to Tottenham, even if everything isn't quite right at Tottenham at the minute, they're more than capable of turning a team over on their night at home. They've beaten City at home, right? They are good at home, except against Arsenal. So I think they are Milan are definitely able to kind of lose this one. So I think they're going to regret not scoring more. What did you who were the standout players for you across this game?
I was impressed by Kulusevski because he did do through ball occasionally through. I thought although he wasn't brilliant overall, I thought he had a good kind of intention, shall we say. Other than that, then I think Tonali had a good game for Milan. I thought he was very good. Diaz, as we mentioned, Kalulu was quite solid. Perisic, perhaps from a Spurs perspective, I think he was back on old stamping ground as well, so that probably helped. He knew the surface, etc.
Yeah.
But other than that, there wasn't really anyone that stood out as such. I think you've already called out Malik Thiaw, who I think is just growing with every game at the moment. So now that you've mentioned about the fact that, Milan should have taken those chances, I do wonder, this is the kind of game where you want pacey players to just counter attack, don't you, really? And I'm looking at that bench and at Milan, for example. There's no way Zlatan's going to run and just do like those kind of counter-attacking runs. So I think they're going to potentially struggle. But that said, when you've got a defence of Dyer, Davies, Lenglet, I mean, it's to be got at, isn't it? That's the thing.
We need to talk about Romero as well.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
He's
that challenge.
Confusing player. In Serie A, he was fantastic. He was like at Atalanta, he got Defender of the Year. He was unbelievable. He seemed like he always had a bit of an edge, right? He was always
hothead.
He was an Argentinian centre back, what you expect. But it seems like he's just wild now. I don't know if Conte is able to discipline or to teach discipline to players, but it feels like he's a lot more unpredictable than he was at Atalanta, unless I'm looking at it through rose-tinted spectacles. But I think, he just seems really quick to fly off the handle, and that tackle was now I think Tonali made a lot of it. I think Tonali did make a lot of it, but that was a bloody wild tackle. And this is he tends to do it in big games. I don't know if Argentina kind of got away with it, eh?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they just seem to get the best out of him because he doesn't seem to do those kind of tackles, does he? But yeah, I think he just seems to just have a moment, doesn't he? Just something goes wrong in his head and he has to just fly at players. And he is a bit suspect at times. It almost feels like you might want to drop him just to get him to basically understand that you can't keep on doing these kind of things during matches.
Is he suspended at the minute in the Premier League? He got sent off recently, didn't he?
I
feel like it wasn't too long ago. I'd have to double check, but I feel like he has been sent off, and I feel like it's there's a bit of a trend emerging. I'm not sure. But Milan get the win. Pioli will be very, very, very happy about that. The atmosphere at the San Siro looked unbelievable. The choreography at the beginning, the whole sides, that was
incredible.
Incredible. European nights at the San Siro. I'm going to be at Interporto.
Yes.
I cannot wait. It's going to be unbelievable. The atmosphere just looked sick. It got me so excited for next week. But we do need to move on from Tottenham getting battered everywhere they go. And we need to go to Sergio Ramos being a bell end, but PSG losing. Adam, take us through this game. What were your takeaways from this?
Takeaways from this particular match was that Pavard seemed to be on a mission to get himself sent off, which he then did. But apart from that, it was the fact that PSG weren't necessarily bad, but they weren't particularly good. And, they had Mbappe off the bench as well because he'd complained that he had got an injury at Montpellier. And he admitted just yesterday that he shouldn't have been playing, basically. So that was very strange for him to even come out of that. So it makes me wonder who was the decision maker in terms of letting him play in this particular match, because he had one particular chance where he didn't have a great chance. He didn't have great control, and he kind of smacked it against Jon Sommer. And the only reason why I picked that out because it was on my Twitter line, someone went, "Oh, amazing goalkeeping by an underrated stopper." And I was thinking, Jon Sommer is an underrated goalkeeper, but that was smacks at him.
It doesn't mean everything he does is therefore fantastic.
Exactly. And, Messi had a chance. It was just a solid performance from Bayern, I thought. And that was the interesting bit about this whole kind of performance, because I think if you look at how Bayern have been in the league, in the Bundesliga, they haven't been great in particular. But likewise, PSG have been poor. I think it is something like they've only won 4 of the last 10 games at the moment.
Wow.
That included a defeat against Marseille in the Coupe de France as well. So it's not looking great for Gaultier, and there's a lot of calls for him to be moved on already, even though he is that pragmatic Frenchman that seems to get results in that league. But it's PSG. It's another circus, unfortunately. That's the problem. And there's rumours already, apparently, Neymar and Messi will be leaving at the end of the season, which I could see happening potentially. I think there's already cries about Messi potentially only playing to the end of his contract and then potentially going somewhere else. So, but yeah, what about you? What did you make of this whole matchup? Because, I haven't really explained about much of the action, because the only thing that I can really call out really was Kingsley Coleman somehow scoring past Donnarumma. I don't know how he let it through. From one angle, it looks so poor.
Really, I was looking at it. I was like, "Am I being harsh?" I was like, "No, he's got to stop that. It's gone right under his armpit. Like you'd expect Donnarumma to save that." And I think him and Jan Sommer did make some good saves. I think Donnarumma made some good saves throughout the game. It's just that one moment he should have done better. Definitely, I feel like it was. You're right. It's two teams that aren't quite where they were a year ago. Like not at those like high levels. I think Gaultier, I really like. I love him as a coach. He did amazing. Like, obviously, won League One with Lille, right? Like, he's done all right. I feel like he's a very, very good manager. He's one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting French manager at the moment. And I think, but when he took the PSG job, I was like, this is going to be like kind of like Graham Potter taking the Chelsea job, right? Where I was like, this could eat you up alive because they are not going to give you the time and patience that you need for the system that he built at Lille. The whole team was crafted in his image, right? And it was all like, exactly how he wanted it. And at PSG, it's like, no, you need to fit these world-class players and make them play, and you figure it out, right? And I feel like it's a job that's very, very much able to kind of see him off. But the thing is, they're still 5 points clear, right? Like everyone's talking like they're having the worst season in the world. They're still, doing all right. I just think maybe PSG are just not that patient in general. But I think, two teams that weren't quite where they were. But Bayern, just, I don't know, a bit more, clinical, a bit more ruthless, a bit calmer. I feel like their performance was a bit calmer, a bit more assured, whereas PSG, obviously, once you're 1-0 down, you do start to panic a bit, but I feel like Bayern at no point really panicked. And that club just gives off, like, I think if you look at the clubs, Bayern gives off that air all the time, that it's just never a panic, never a fluster, everything's fine. Whereas PSG is like the polar opposite, and everything, it always kind of seems like on the brink of meltdown. So I think kind of like Bayern just kind of Bayerned their way through it, and PSG'd their way through it, and that's what happened. I think like it'll be interesting to see PSG go to Munich now, because I can't see them getting anything there, I'll be honest.
I can't, but equally, I'm looking forward to that matchup as well, because I think it will be quite end-to-end potentially in this match. So from that point of view, I'm really looking forward to it. But
well, that's it. PSG have got to come out now, right? And Bayern won't be able to just sit back and absorb it. So I think it is going to be an interesting game. I just can't see PSG getting anything in Munich. Teams don't do well in Munich apart from Bayern, right? So I think, that could be a difficult one. Sergio Ramos very quickly pushing photographer. Fuck's sake. I understand that the guy, like the photographer, he does have a huge zoom and you can avoid that man right in front of you, but there's no need to just shove him so hard. I just thought, fuck's sake, Ramos, like, just, he's such a prick, isn't he? I'm sure he's lovely off the pitch, but he's such a prick. I was just rolled my eyes when I saw it and thought, God, don't ever get close to him on the metro or something. You'll end up on a bloody line. He'll just push you into the fucking thing. So there you go. That's some cutting edge analysis for you. Sergio Ramos is a bit of a bell end. We do need to move on to the next game. We're going to stay in Germany, kind of, even though we weren't in Germany. And we're going to go to FM Wonder Kid Karim Adeyemi with the coldest finish against Chelsea. Adam, for people on the podcast, repping a beautiful Dortmund shirt there, third kit. Big fan of that one.
Marco Reus on the back as well.
Nice, classic. Adeyemi, super cold finish. Super cold finish. Managed to take it around Kepa. calm as you like.
Yes.
Another stadium where the atmosphere looked unbelievable. I was like, it's bucket list level stuff to go and watch a game at the Westfalenstadion. That looks unbelievable. Chelsea, I felt, well, no, guess what? Guess what? We've been saying it forever. Adam, what do they need?
Not another midfielder. Definitely not another
attacking midfielder.
But they do need a striker. They need a striker.
Yeah.
Someone that can actually tuck away chances, like something that wouldn't go to Kai Havertz. Let's put it that way. It was...
Which leads me on to what do they need to learn? Kai Havertz isn't a striker. He's
none of the ones that they play in that role can score. Even João Felix had a handful of chances. Yeah. He should have done better. Unfortunately, he just hasn't got the composure or the same level of composure. It was interesting because obviously I thought they played quite well despite that.
Yeah.
And they played really well. And they were very dangerous from set pieces. Reece James obviously thought he'd scored. Unfortunately, it was ruled out as well. So it was just unfortunate. However, Schlotterbeck as well was incredible. I know he's got a terrible record for the German national side, especially when it comes to conceding penalties. But in that first 2 minutes, he had to make an incredible challenge on Mudryk to stop him from potentially either squaring it or scoring himself. And he times it with perfection, which is the Schlotterbeck that we know of that performed at SC Freiburg last season and got him to that position in Dortmund. But Edin Terzic is someone that's going a bit under the radar. I know he's been previously in a role as a caretaker manager at Dortmund. He's getting it now. It's probably taking him the best part of 6 months. I think he's got the credentials to potentially push on and maybe push on in the championship in the Bundesliga, because obviously we've spoken about Bayern being quite poor. Union Berlin are doing fantastically well, which I'm sure we'll mention. But in this match, it seemed like they absorbed a lot of the pressure. They did counter-attack as well. It gave Chelsea a bit of a fright. And as you rightly allude to, Adeyemi scoring that wonder goal, he obviously just counter-attacks, essentially. Enzo Fernandez doesn't know what to do. He's trying to distract him, and he just walks past Asperger and just slots it nicely home. And that was pretty much the summary of this match, because otherwise, it's going to be an interesting second leg, but I don't think Chelsea are going to put any chances away. I don't know. What do you feel?
I feel like Dortmund can still be Dortmund, and I feel like if any team is going to go away with a lead and come back without that lead, it's going to be Dortmund. I feel like they're just so hot and cold all the bloody time that I feel like Chelsea will be looking back and going, okay, we were the better team. We created more chances. On another day, we win that fairly comfortably. We do that again, we're through. And I think Chelsea can be quite calm about it. The only thing is, I don't know if I don't know what's going on with Potter. It just feels like he's coaching. I think he's doing everything right, but then on the pitch, it's just not getting there because he cannot put the ball in the back of the net for the players. He can't do it himself.
No.
A lot of those chances should have been put away. So I wonder where the issue is now. But it just, again, kind of like with Tottenham, it just feels like there's just something not right there at the minute. So Dortmund can definitely be hopeful, but I think Chelsea can be feeling confident going into this that they can score 2 and not concede.
I was going to say, though, did you see the press conference afterwards as well? He seems to be getting a little bit rattled by the constant questioning of his style, the fact that he's not reacting. And that, to a degree, I would just park that to the side and say, not all managers have to be intense in these kind of environments when they're giving answers. It doesn't mean they're not committed to the cause. It's just his style, right? He prefers not to allay the kind of emotions that maybe these journalists expect. But at the same time, you did see there's a little kind of murmur that seems to be swelling a bit in his mind, perhaps, and it's overriding what's going on. And the more he's getting questioned, the more he's going to start getting a bit rattled. You saw a glimmer of it coming out, right?
I think But I would, if someone was like questioning my managerial decisions, I'd go, okay, yeah, right. In the 70th minute, I shouldn't have taken him off, and I question my tactical decisions, but start picking character flaws as you see them, and that's personal and it's needless. I also think, like, have you seen a press conference with Carlo Ancelotti where he's ever lost his mind? No. Have you seen a press conference with, like, I don't know, well, Wenger did a little bit, but, like, I don't know, there's plenty of managers that don't go mental. There's plenty of managers that are just, like, placid and, like, look, I have to talk to you people. I don't want to talk to you people. I'll get it done. I'll give you your answers and I'll sod off home. And I think that's absolutely fair. I think Graham Potter is getting a line of questioning that no other manager gets. Like, the other end of it, you got Arteta because he takes it too far, getting criticized. And this is what the point that Potter was saying is, like, you're telling me that I'm not animated enough, but then you're publishing stories about managers getting angry and you're publishing stories about referees being abused at grassroots football. Like, can you not see the two are linked? Like, and he's answering in a very nuanced and intelligent and calm way, which isn't what the tabloids like the fucking Sun and the Mail want, right? They want, someone screaming and swearing.
They want Jose Mourinho, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think what Graham Potter is doing is he's handling it very well. And I think if he loses his temper, he is fully within his right to, because no other manager in the league is having their character questions, and like your personality, who you are is not suitable for the job. Not like you're not qualified, you're not good enough. It's you as a person don't fit what we think is a Premier League manager. Well, go fuck yourself. Like you sit here then, if you know what I mean. I just think when you're getting character judgments, it's really unfair.
Yeah, no, I was definitely kind of alluding more to that side if it didn't come across that way, because I think he is that style of manager. He's not necessarily going to be a Jose Mourinho that kind of deflects and says it's all about him. But I think I do worry whether that's almost like getting to a point where he's just getting frustrated with these line of questioning, the line of like integrity around his style
over and over again as well, over again. And I think it just seems really unfair. And this is, like we've said it before, if he gets sacked, it'll be the papers that get him sacked, and this is part of it. This is all the start of it. If he gets sacked, it'll be the papers that do it, and I think they're gunning for him. And I hope he gets through it, because I like him as a coach. I really like him as a coach and as a manager. But for Chelsea, they have to go back to Stamford Bridge. They'll be feeling confident. Dortmund, don't fuck this up, Dortmund. Just do not fuck it up. That's just one thing. You got one job. And then lastly, I completely forgot until I sat down to watch the highlights today. Scott Parker, Champions League manager, didn't get off to the best start, fair to say. The centre-back who gave away the mistake for the second goal, seeing his visible frustration was pretty rough to watch. But for Benfica, very efficient. I think they would have been quite happy getting that draw when it came through. Sorry, Bruges fans. But what did you make of this game, and can Bruges drag it back in Lisbon?
I think it's very tough for them to bring it back, especially as they go to Benfica, which is a bit of a fortress for Benfica. They seem to pull it out of the bag when it comes to these nights. You've got experienced players like, obviously, Otamendi at the back as well. So I think that plays a huge part. They've been quite solid as well this season, just in general. But there was some glimmers, It's not like Club Brugge are a bad side. They've got an interesting forward, like in Neo Liang, for example, and that centre back that you alluded to was Jack Hendry, who was on loan at Cremonese, being brought back in by Scott Parker, and unfortunately he had that moment. So yes, not great for him, but I'm sure he'll learn from this experience. This is the thing, and it's unfortunate because they had Dennis Odoi, who was formerly of Fulham, score a goal, but it was adjudged offside, unfortunately. And then you obviously saw a split minute later, Benfica are at the other end scoring. And unfortunately, that's the moral of the story. And David Neres as well for the second one was incredible as well. So, I mean, this is the thing. It's going to be tough. When you look at the quality Benfica have at the disposal, I think it's pretty much foregone conclusion. And I think Scott Parker will just concentrate on what he can do with that squad. I just feel it's a bit weird that Scott Parker is a Champions League manager. How did he get there from sunny Bournemouth to there? He's massively done well for himself, I suppose. Not to say he's a bad manager, but I do feel sorry for the previous manager, Carl Hofkins, who was only judged to have not pleased the chairman at the time, despite the results that he pulled off in those early stages of the Champions League as well. What about you? What do you think? Do you think they stand a chance?
No, I think no. In one word, no. I think Lisbon is a hell of a place to go to, and I think there was a fairly sizable gap in quality. I did also want to very quickly point out Inter legend João Mario getting another goal. Yes. He's now got 12 goals and 4 assists in 19 games for Sporting Lisbon. He, of course, scored against Milan, I think, in the group stage. I feel like he got revenge on Milan in the group stage. Very good to see him. I saw him playing for Inter, and he was very, very underwhelming. So it's good to see him doing well somewhere else. Good on you, Joao. But we do need to move on from the Champions League now, and we're going to go to the Europa League, the Cool Kids Club. It's where everyone loves to be. And we've got the teams from the Champions League down and the teams that finish second facing off against each other. And just as we speak, the game has finished an hour or so ago as Manchester United 2, Barcelona 2. Andy was right. It does feel like a Champions League game. I think the Europa League is just getting better and better. But 2-2. And of course, Rashford scores again. Unbelievable. Running out of words to describe that guy. The season he's having, what Ten Hag is managing to get out of him. But I think what we did see is that Barcelona are not here to mess around either. I think even though everything in the background is a bit of a shit show, Xavi has got them doing pretty well. They're still top of La Liga, right?
They are. They're still top of La Liga as it currently stands, with Robert Lewandowski up top as well. So we always forget about that. And
that's a club in crisis, apparently.
Yeah, clearly. But it's interesting, Rory, as we talk about Barcelona, there's a little bit of a scandal going on in La Liga about Bartomeu and the fact that he has been linked with paying the referees League Association in Spain during his spell. It's due to some funds that went into the head of the association's company, so a company that he owns. And
his wife owns or something.
Saying it's nothing linked to refereeing or anything like that.
Registered in his dog's name, like Harry Redknapp.
Pretty much. So, yes, there's more going on in the background, and Laporta denying that he knows anything about it. But the murky depths of Barcelona seem to be coming out a bit more as well.
Love it. It's a never-ending soap opera. But for United, they now get to take them back to Salford. Do you think United see this through, or do you think Barcelona knock them out?
I really don't know. I just think it almost feels like there's vibes of Lewandowski scoring a goal. But then again, Man United have been great at home as well. They have their moments. So it would be intriguing, let's put it that way. The fact that it's a tie kind of shows you how close it is at the moment. I don't think it's that far in terms of conclusions, shall we say. I think it's still going to be open. Dare I say it, could it go all the way to extra time and then maybe pens? That could be fascinating.
We need that box office. We need that box office elsewhere to keep it Anglo-Italian. Roma lost away to Salzburg 1-0. Nicolas Capaldo in the 88th minute. Roma managed to have 3 shots on target, 10 shots in general. Salzburg didn't really offer much more, but they did get the all-important goal. How do we feel about this one? Roma in Rome for the second leg.
It sounds like a Mourinho tie, doesn't it? Because they're one goal down. They'll kind of feel optimistic. The fact that the first leg was down there as opposed to being in Rome. I think if it was Rome, then I think they'd be a bit more fearful. But it could go either way, to be fair. For me, I think Jose won't be looking at this too badly. I think he will probably look at this and go, 1 goal, there's nothing in it. This tie is still open. So let's see what happens in the second leg, Rory.
We shall see. For the hipster's choice that I made, it of course finished 0-0 between Ajax and Union Berlin. Ajax not a single shot on target, and Union Berlin, I think, probably did enough to win the game, but were unable to convert the chances. Shakhtar Donetsk beating Rennes 2-1, scoring in the 11th and 45th minute. Really loving that Donetsk. It doesn't matter where they are, what they're doing, what's going on. They just deliver the goods. They're always just absolute quality.
Yeah. It's beautiful that they're being able to do it still in Warsaw at the moment as well. So fantastic to see them carrying on that momentum, because I think, just to put a bit more context, it's not like they've got a lot of amazing talents that they've been used to down the years. This is like their third and fourth base teams. This is their youth academy essentially coming through at the moment, playing for them, and they're playing with a lot of heart at the moment. So fair play to them. They're playing really well, and the fact that Mudryk is no longer there, so they haven't got their talismanic talent as they would have from the early stages of the Champions League. They're still doing a hell of a job right now, so fair play to them.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And just think, every single prospect will now go for 100 million. They are rolling in it, absolutely rolling in it. And as we currently speak, the scores are Sevilla beating PSV 3-0. Nesri, Ocampos and Gudesh getting the goal. Not sure how to say that last one. Sporting losing at home to Midtjylland. Emam Ashore getting the goal. Again, Sporting Lisbon, 14 shots, 0 on target, 73% possession. They've had 634 passes compared to Midtjylland's 240. That is a Mourinho performance right there from Midtjylland. And currently, again, as we speak, Juventus are being held 1-1 at home by Nantes.
Of course they are.
Vlahovic has scored, and Ludovic Blas for Nantes. Off the top of my head as well, Nantes really aren't doing well this season. I need to double check that. And Leverkusen 2, Monaco 2, as I check if I'm right about Nantes. I get the feeling that
they are 13th, so they are literally 3 places above the relegation zone.
Wow.
They are some distance when it comes to points tally. That said, because they are 28 points from 23. Then the team below them, Montpellier, have got 23 points. So there is a bit of a gap. But they're not necessarily pushing it higher up the table, shall we say.
Well, they can focus it all on the Europa League now. And Leverkusen 2, Monaco 2, Moussa Diaby, Florian Wirtz, that guy, getting the goals for Leverkusen, Hradetsky and Crepin Diatta for Monaco. So lots of goals in the Europa League and a few surprises, which is what we like to see. Exactly. And finally, before we go to our weekend preview, we have to go to the even cooler kids club as we go to the Conference League. And in the early kickoffs, we have had Fiorentina beat 10-man Braga 4-0. Jukalovic gets 2 and Artur Cabral gets 2. You know they're still not going to score in Serie A, but Fiorentina, spread your goals out. Don't get them all in one game, for the love of God. Karabag beating Ghent 1-0. That is pretty
massive.
Big.
That's an achievement at the moment. When you think about the levels of those clubs, don't get me wrong, Karabag are a very big club for what they are, but to get a result against Ghent, that's very big. That's massive for them. So if they could progress, awesome.
That is it. Yeah, well, exactly. That is a great start for them. Trabzonspor beating Basel 1-0 and Bodo Glimt Lech Poznan 0-0. Yeah. Going back to Poznan. I've been to Poznan, actually, to been to a game there. Decent little stadium. I like it. I like Poznan. I think they could get something at home, maybe, but Bodo Glimt are a tricky one, aren't they? And currently, in the dying moments, 10-man Partizan are beating Sheriff 1-0 away. That could be pretty huge. We've got AEK Larnaca. Now, I think that is Neil Lennon's team, beating Dnipro 1-0. And we have Ludogorets beating Anderlecht 1-0 and Lazio, 10-man Lazio. Jesus Christ, oh my God. They had Patrick sent off in the 15th minute, but guess who scored for Lazio?
Was it Immobile?
It was Immobile, and it wasn't a penalty. 45+4 in the first half to give a currently, as it stands, 1-0 win for the Laziali, which would be a good little start because that is it a bit of a tricky game? Yeah, I'm going to say Cluj could be tricky. And that is it. That is all the European football, I think.
Yes.
So much football. It's truly back the midweek. It's busy again, isn't it?
Yes, it's getting really tough to keep on top of it again. So we might need more eyes on it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, as I was like typing all the banners today, the things that come up, so I had a bit of like admin, and I was like, okay, Premier League, Champions League, Europa League, bloody hell, Conference League. I was like, any more tournaments? League of Ireland, anybody? We will see. But anyway, we are the neighbour's enjoying the show. He's banging on the wall again. I'm going to set fire to his house. We need to go for a very little break while I go and get
set fire to your neighbour's house.
Don't tell the police. We are going to come back after this very short break, and I'm going to try and get back calm. See you on the other side.
Hi, my name is Dimi Konstantopoulos, and you're listening to the Anglo-Italian podcast.
And here we are. It's time for the weekend preview. If I'm a little bit quiet, it's because the police are getting close. I don't want them to know that I'm hiding. I've managed to put the flames out, though. I think we're okay. And it is time to talk about the Premier League and Serie A weekend. We're going to start in the Premier League, I'm going to say. And it starts on Saturday, of course, with Arsenal coming up against Aston Villa as Arsenal take on Unai Emery at Villa Park. This is the early kickoff. It's got disaster written all over it. But hopefully we manage to get something done. It feels like Villa's form at the moment has been really like slightly improving, but definitely like hot and cold. They've got a draw, 2 wins, 2 losses. Definitely like consistency hasn't been their strength. So hopefully Arsenal can take advantage of that. But for Unai Emery, we know that against the bigger teams, he does tend to have pretty good game plans. So I think this could be a tricky one for this. How do you see this game going, Adam?
Yeah, when I looked at Villa against Man City, they were just a shadow of their usual selves that we've been used to seeing. However, having said that, obviously they lost against Leicester City not that long ago as well, and Tyrone Mings didn't look particularly solid. But they have a habit of doing it against Arsenal, don't they? And Ollie Watkins in particular has been in good form. Leon Bailey of late up until the Man City match was quite good as well. It's an interesting matchup. And I think if Arsenal are going to gain any confidence, then this is the match to bring it into as well. It'll be interesting as well because Saka, the last time he played against him, was hacked off the pitch, right? So I think there is potential revenge for Saka there. I wouldn't be surprised if Saka scores in this match as well. So
God, I hope so.
Could be beautiful for you, mate. Could be beautiful.
I hope so. Also, the Colombian striker that we talked about, whose name now escapes me, absolutely bounced one off the crossbar against City, and I thought, my God, he does really look quite excited. He's definitely going to score this weekend. Next, the game we're going to talk about next is the 2 surprise packages of the season as Brighton take on Fulham at the Amex. So Brighton currently in 6th. Fulham currently on 7th, both on 35 points. Brighton have played 2 games less than Fulham, but this feels like it could be the game of the weekend, I think, in terms of like the most interesting, most exciting, 2 attacking teams, nothing to lose, both in great form. What do you think about this one?
I'm really excited about the type of football that could be played here because they're both managers that kind of have that philosophy of playing really well. Fulham are being very solid this season. But we've been singing the praises of Brighton this season as well. So it's written in the stars to be a 0-0 draw, right? I just don't know. It could go either way. But also, I do feel like Marco Silva's probably the most pragmatic out of the 2. So could he like play it and kind of go the long ball way? I don't know. But Mitrovic has been quiet of late. It has to be said. So I don't know. I think it'll be a draw, though, personally. What about you?
I'm going to say a draw as well, but I think it's going to be an entertaining one. I think it's really going to be an entertaining one. Down at the bottom, we have Everton taking on Leeds in 2 teams that are... So Everton at 18th, still in the relegation zone. Leeds United are 17th. 1 point separates them. Everton, of course, have that one win against Arsenal in the last 5. Leeds have no wins in the last 5. This could be a scrappy one. Everton, I think people were expecting them to build on the momentum from the Arsenal game. They then got slapped fairly comfortably by Liverpool. How do you see them doing against Leeds?
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because I think Leeds probably more aesthetically feel like they're playing the better football, I would dare to say. However, we know they've got a bit of a clanger at the back as well. And Everton against Liverpool were just so poor. So it'll be very interesting again. It feels like it'll be another draw. But Rory, I wanted to allude to you about Leeds. Apparently, the latest search for manager has made them go down the south coast to Harry Redknapp. Apparently, he's been linked with the role. I don't know if we will see his Land Rover where he will have his little hand saying, "All right, where's Nico Crancher?" Like basically hanging
getting
out.
the old band back together.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know.
Oh God, don't do that. Jesus, just stick with
the
the bloke there. Stick with the bloke. Stick with Scubala and just see how it goes. Because honestly, Harry Redknapp, I genuinely have. Like my opinion of Harry Redknapp is so low, and I know I'm in the minority. A lot of people really think he's a good manager. I just do not see it at all. Leeds, do not do it. Just stick with who you've got. You do not need that guy at your club. Elsewhere, we have Chelsea taking on Southampton. That is an opportunity for Chelsea to get back to winning ways. Yeah. Nottingham Forest against Man City. That's going to be an interesting one. Mm-hmm. But Man City kind of feel like they're clicking into gear now. Then Newcastle taking on Liverpool. Now, this is a great one. Liverpool getting a really good result against Everton. Obviously, you never know what version of Liverpool is going to turn up. But Newcastle being crazy good at home. They've had a mad amount of draws. I think they're currently they're on track for the most draws in a Premier League season ever. They've drawn 11 games. How do you see this one going? Will Liverpool get the win or will Newcastle get the draw?
I fancy Newcastle for the win, personally. I think they've got revenge on their minds from the previous game that was at Anfield, where they lost 2-1 in the dying seconds, if you remember. Alexander Isak as well scored on that particular day. I think that was his debut, if I remember rightly.
I think it was.
Again, I just think Liverpool are getting the form right now, but against a side like Newcastle, I think Newcastle have better quality. And I think if you think about the midfield as well, I think compared to Everton, they're going to be a lot more dominant in the middle of the park. So I do fancy Newcastle for this particular match. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing a Newcastle win here. Liverpool, again, we've just seen have been crazy inconsistent. And I think Newcastle have been consistent. Like they've just been so consistent. You know, like the minimum level of performance you're going to get from them. So I can see Newcastle getting a win here, putting them in great form for the upcoming final that I'm sure they've all got one eye on. Then on Sunday, we have Manchester United taking on Leicester City. I think that's only going to go one way. And then late on the Sunday, late-ish, mid-afternoon, we have Tottenham taking on West Ham. Now, this is a game that there's always plenty of fight, two sides that proper hate each other. I think another game where I think West Ham's record is probably better than it is, but I fancy West Ham to get something here. What do you think?
It feels like a game that they could grab something out of it. I want to say those Spurs do scrape a win. That's not the words that Tom wants to hear. I'm sure he's probably cursing me right now. However, I just feel like West Ham have their moments at the moment this season. They haven't been consistent enough. And I think they got away with it against Chelsea. The fact that they were at home, I think, helped them out. Here's a different story. They hate each other. I think Spurs will go out there trying to win, especially after that drubbing against Leicester. So they can't afford another defeat here in particular. But Rory, I wanted to also mention there's one game we haven't mentioned, which is Brentford versus Crystal Palace as well, isn't there? So that is an interesting match because Brentford in great form, Crystal Palace not so much, and they probably could do with the win. What do you think about this particular matchup?
I think Crystal Palace are just, again, another hot and cold team. I can never predict what they're going to do. I feel like Patrick Vieira is still trying to figure out what he's doing, which is worrying. I think players like Edouard, he's a really good striker. He's when he's played, he's been in quite good form, but I feel like the football doesn't really suit his style of play. It feels like Vieira had a very clear vision, and now it's kind of been muddied and lost a little bit. And I think he needs to refocus and get the team focused again.
Yeah.
Brentford, really, really, really good team. Just a very good team. Ivan Toney is an unbelievable striker, like unbelievable, just the way he holds the ball up. And I think Brentford should be looking at getting a win here. Sorry, Palace fans. I still think outside shout for getting dragged into the relegation battle is Crystal Palace, because they're really, really struggling at the minute. But we do need to go over to the Serie A, over to Italy, and it all starts on Friday night, or tonight as you are listening, as Sassuolo host Napoli. Sassuolo on a bit of a revival. We were kind of writing them off for a while, but they've kind of turned their form around a little bit, unbeaten in 4, 2 wins, 2 draws. Napoli, obviously, this unstoppable force at the moment. This game's only really going to go one way, right?
I expect so. It's interesting because there's a lot of talks at Napoli about who's going to be there next season. Zielinski's still being linked with a move out of the club at the moment. But yeah, with that exception, Napoli seems strong enough. And I think, again, do they rest ahead of the Champions League this time around? It'll be interesting. But I think they'd be stupid and naive not to keep the momentum going. And I'm sure what they'll do is strong 11 for the first 60 minutes, and then they'll start taking off certain key players, shall we say. So, yeah, can only see maybe a 2-0 victory for Napoli. What about you?
Nice. Yeah, I think it's going to be fairly comfortable. Yeah. Sassuolo put up a bit of a fight, but Napoli will get the job done. We have Sampdoria versus Bologna. Bologna really actually kind of, again, a bit of like, well, they lost their last game. They were doing quite well before that. I feel like Bologna, this could be a tricky one. Sampdoria, though, firmly in trouble. Stankovic definitely not having a good time there. Maybe that is a comfortable win for Bologna. That is on Saturday. Yeah. Then we have Monza taking on Milan as Berlusconi faces up against his former club.
Loves it.
First chairman not celebrating against a team, maybe we might see. Although knowing Berlusconi, he's definitely going to celebrate. Well, we've seen Monza at home. They've been very, very difficult to beat at home. So I think this could be a tricky one for Milan. We've said that, you know, the 1-0 win against whoever it was, they beat 1-0. Sassuolo, no, not Sassuolo, I can't remember. And then they beat Tottenham 1-0, right? Starting to get a bit of a win together, a bit of form together. But Monza is a very tricky place to go. How do you see this one going?
I think if you think about how Monza have done it against the bigger teams like Juventus, they could get something out of this match. Just looking at the last 5 games as well, they are second behind Napoli in terms of the last 5 games form. So, yeah, it could easily go the way of Monza. And as you allude to, I expect Galliani and obviously his right hand man, Berlusconi, really celebrating and living it up. So, yeah, I would not be surprised if Monza shock here and win 1-0 here. I could see that happening.
Yeah, the only unbeaten team in Serie A since the World Cup. We keep saying it. We're going to keep saying it until it's not true. They are absolutely killing it, Monza. Then late on Saturday, we have Inter against Udinese. Now, Inter dropping the ball against Sampdoria with that 0-0. Really not what they needed. Need to get a win against. Udinese, we know, are a tricky team. Definitely, like their start to the season was great, really not doing well the second half of the season, but it could still be a tough game for Inter. What do you think?
Yeah, it's weird with Inter. You just don't know which side is going to turn up. I think it should be comfortable though, because Inter are at home. If this was at Udinese and Udine, then I would expect a bit more of a harder game, but I think Inter should pull off a win. It might be by a slight goal margin, though. I'm not expecting a huge amount of goals in this one. And I also, just to mention it, because I forgot to mention it to you earlier, Rory, Lautaro Martinez linked with a move to Arsenal, supposedly 90
again.
Out. So, yeah. Do you see that happening?
The weirder one I saw as well, because Inter Shock are desperate to raise money. They're apparently offering out Andre Onana as well for 50 million. All is not well at Inter. There is some mad shit going on there. But
is Handanovic coming back then?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe they'll get Tatrasanu from Milan. Who knows? I think, like, I don't know. If there needs to be a fire sale, I would be quite happy for Arsenal to take advantage. Let's say that. Elsewhere, we are Atalanta against Lecce on Sunday. Nice little interesting one there. Fiorentina taking on Empoli in a very mid-table clash. Fiorentina desperately need a win. Salernitana taking on Lazio as Paulo Sousa makes his Serie A return. Serie A debut? Serie A return? Return.
Probably.
Then Spezia hosting Juventus. Managerless Spezia taking on Juventus. Roma against Verona on Sunday night. And then Monday night, we have Torino versus Cremonese. Very quickly, Adam, I'm going to say Atalanta-Lecce. Give me some words.
Goal spree for Atalanta.
Oof.
There we go.
I like that. But Bashirotto is going to have something to say, I think. We will see.
Get his plow out.
Yeah. We'll see if he has something to say. Well, listeners, viewers, thank you for joining us once again. It is time for us and you to go. But before you do, as always, please follow us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod. Like and subscribe, leave comments if you heavily agree, disagree, or don't care about something we've said in this episode. Just leave it down there. We'll read it. And yeah, we will now leave you. Anything to say before I give them their customary quote of the week?
No, just looking forward to the weekend full of interesting games, right, Rory?
Fingers crossed. Speriamo. Now, guys, there was only one person we could talk about for this week's customary quote, and it is, of course, Graham Potter. And maybe this is why he doesn't show much personality, because this is him attempting a joke. We'll let you be the judge. I was used to football supporters hammering me, and I thought my name was Graham Potter Boo at one point. We'll see you next week, listeners.
Ciao, ciao.